now recognizes herself for 5 minutes of questioning. I think it's great that we're talking about potential solutions, but you cannot look to solutions unless you're willing to admit what is the problem. And Mr. Mergen, listening to you today talk about NEPA, you live on a different planet than I have for the last 25 years in terms of practicing law and fighting against radical environmental groups as they have weaponized NEPA to stop every project and stop the ability to access and produce affordable and reliable energy. Mr. Campbell, you have several times referenced the desperate need for reliable and affordable energy. And the ranking member just threw a tantrum attacking the administration for its wind and solar policies. But everybody in this room knows that wind and solar are not affordable and they are not reliable. We have got to focus on the things that work. In Wyoming, we are the largest coal producer in the nation. But we also often say that federal coal is actually subject to triple jeopardy when it comes to NEPA. In other words, there's 3 different times that any one of our projects has to go through NEPA, 3 separate times. That is because the Office of Surface Mining recently made a policy decision disconnected from any statutory requirement requiring federal mine plans to also be subject to NEPA. 3 layers of the federal coal permitting process are now subject to NEPA review in Wyoming. So, Mr. Hergott, are there other project areas that you are aware of that are subject to multiple rounds of NEPA?
I mean, if you could rephrase the question, I mean, I think what you're saying is the redundancy of the additional work that's being required that's not in current law?
That's correct.
Yes, I mean, the mission creep on that, courts are improvising and agencies are defaulting in fear, and in that absence, in that vacuum, project developers are left out on a limb with no one to back them.
And the certainty and stability is absolutely critically important for these large multi-billion projects to go forward, isn't it?
If we stay on this current path, I'm not sure who's going to invest in any project in this country. In fact, I would tell them not to. There is no predictable path to an ROI, and right now it's 7 to 8 years from the concept to just getting to a place where you're at the end of NEPA, and then you still need to build the darn thing. That's a 10-year window. That's 4 midterms and 2 presidential elections. Based on the abandonment rate of what's happening now with cases that are still winning in Supreme Court, but the project is already abandoned, like Atlantic Coast and Penn East, there's no reason why you would put $500 million, $1 billion behind any project in this country without a regulatory path, and the way in which NEPA has been co-opted to be a proxy fight against an energy source that people don't like because they didn't win an election.
So, Mr. Campbell, what does that do to our ability to produce reliable and affordable energy to meet the demands in this country?
So I think we need changes, and fossil fuel is not the enemy that everybody wants to make it out to. We have to have that. That's the always available generation. I think we need renewables, and we need lots of nuclear in this country too. But we have to somehow get through the red tape to where we can start to build.
And right now, because of the way that NEPA has been interpreted, the way that the environmental groups have used it as a weapon to stop these projects, that's an impossibility. Is that correct?
I think on both sides, whoever's trying to do it can manipulate the system, and you shouldn't allow that.
But we know how the system's being manipulated. We don't have to both sides this. The reality is that there has been a war on coal, a war on pipelines, a war on oil and gas for a couple of decades now. That is just the reality, and as a result, we're in the situation that we're in right now, aren't we?
I don't disagree with that.
Mr. Bowles, what do you think about that? How do we go forward with these projects that we desperately need if we have NEPA in the current condition that it's in?
With a concise, defined process, I think is the only way to proceed in a process that's fair to all.
So we need permitting reform. We need to reform the way that NEPA is interpreted and applied. That is Congress's responsibility. Wouldn't you agree?
If NEPA is the process, I think you need to dig deeper and look at the individual permits. Could be part of the problem or the challenge. But if NEPA is the process, I think just outlining the process would be a great place to start.
Okay, I appreciate that. With that, I yield back. Yes.
Madam Chair, may I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record this June 2025 report by Ember Energy showing that prices on battery storage have fallen so significantly that solar and battery storage can now provide affordable, reliable 24/7 energy even when the sun goes down. According to the report, the average global cost of these solar storage systems is $104 per megawatt hour, more affordable than new coal plants, which cost $118.
Without objection,
Thank
so
you, Madam
ordered.
Chair.